despite the horrendous attacks that the movement had to face, it survived. We know that out of the Central Committee formed at the time of the first Congress of the party, all those who stood firm on revolution were murdered by the enemy. And all those who betrayed the revolution were left alive to go around preaching their revisionism. And just like the recent set of capitulators like Sonu and Rupesh are doing, declaring that armed struggle is something that is not possible in Indian conditions. So when these people say that, it is nothing new to us. It is by facing these sort of misleading statements made by erstwhile stalwarts that the movement emerged and forged ahead, again and again. In an earlier occasion, when I was here, I had pointed out that compared to that period of the 70s, the situation today is quite favorable. At that time, when I was speaking, this capitulation, the surrenders had not taken place. But there were already indications that something of that sort is going to happen. And that is why I drew attention to the abandoning of armed struggle by the erstwhile CPI leadership, which led to the withdrawal of the Telangana armed struggle and a temporary suspension of armed struggle in the 70s, which led, on the contrary, to a rebuilding of the movement and a surging ahead. And I had pointed out at that time that the key question is whether one stands firm on the path of revolution. Now, the new set of capitulators have come out again saying that this path of revolution, the armed struggle, is not possible in India. The path of protracted people's war is not suitable for our conditions, etc., etc. And, as could be expected, the only thing they have to propose is the electoral path, the parliamentary path. One says that we made a mistake by calling for the boycott of elections, that Lenin has always said that elections is a matter of tactics. The other says that by not participating in elections, we got cut off from the masses. Anyone who's at least a little familiar, at least a little connected with the masses would know with what disgust they regard the parliamentary system. True, they vote. Every election comes, they go and vote. Because there is nothing else to do. And it is also related to the daily necessities. Because if you want to get something done, you have to get hold of some political leader, some local fellow, to approach this office or that office, or intervene in the police station. So to keep be in their good books, people often vote. Very well knowing that it's not going to change anything, that their lives are not going to change, and that ultimately whoever gets elected is going to live off them, is going to make money out of them. Yet the capitulator is telling us that because the revolutionary movement kept away from elections, it lost contact with the masses. Which masses he has in mind, one does not know. Obviously, it is not the masses that we usually talk about. If it is the middle class, the upper layers of the middle class, or the ruling classes, yes, that's true. But then the revolutionary movement was not about them, it was about the basic masses, about those who toil, who suffer exploitation and oppression. And for them, definitely, we were very much in touch with them. There was never a moment when we kept away from them. The ruling classes have consciously and continuously tried to cut off the revolutionary movement from the masses, by banning mass organizations, by preventing any sort of public activity, by charging UAPA cases for even putting up posters. This has all been going on. But despite all that, despite this continuous effort by the ruling classes, by the state, to prevent the revolutionary movement from connecting with the masses, it has always succeeded in doing that in one way or the other, by using one ruse or the other. And the enemy also knows that, so they keep on persisting, and we also keep on persisting. But then that's the way that revolutions take place. Actually, this set of capitulators reminded me of two things. One, something that Mao had said when there was a demand that his birthday should be celebrated. He said, no, nothing of that sort, because you can never be sure about a person until he is dead. I mean, we know from the whole history of our communist movement, look at the number of great guys who turned out to be great. You should use a slang word there, a swear word there, but then since this is a polite assembly, I won't do that. But you know what they turned out to be after all. So therefore, Mao was very correct. And look at now what's happened. People who have been in the movement for decades together, who did do some service, no doubt. It's not that they were blackguards or traitors from the very beginning. But then, to be a revolutionary for even decades is okay. But to remain on the revolutionary path, to remain consistent in your communism of serving the people throughout your lifetime is a big challenge. And that's why Mao said you can't be sure of anybody until he's dead. After he's dead, okay, you celebrate him, you say that he was a great guy, etc., etc., etc. But you never know when he might turn to be a revisionist. So that's one thing. The other thing is, all this talk about this path of revolution is not successful, that the conditions are such that it cannot sustain, etc., etc. I cannot go into that because I don't know exactly what the conditions are. It might be really tough, no doubt. There might be a problem in sustaining where they are, okay. But does that mean that the path that was decided upon is wrong? Or does it indicate that we have to improve upon it? That we have to develop it further to suit the present conditions, taking into account the extent of urban influences that have crept up everywhere in the nook and corner of the country, and the possibilities that offers also. There are various things that come to mind. There are various things that have been attempted and carried out by Maoist parties in various parts of the world also, from which we have to take lessons. But to think that because we are not able to sustain in one place, or because we suffer setbacks in one area, to come to the conclusion that the path of revolution itself is wrong, I think that would be a gross mistake. I mean, it's a total misunderstanding of the situation. And that's where I'm reminded of another thing, what happened in the history of the Russian Revolution. Lenin, as you know, was in exile in Switzerland around the time when the February Revolution took place. Just a few months before that, he was addressing a meeting of students or youth or something, and somebody asked a question, when do you expect this revolution to take place? And he replied, I don't know whether it's going to take place in my lifetime, but I do know that if at all we have to make out a revolution, then this is the only way we can do it. We have to stick to this path. And just a few months later, the February Revolution broke out, and we know what happened after that in history. So that is the question. You see that it's not a question of whether you see success immediately before you, where you can be sure that yes, we are going to achieve this. A lot of things can turn out to be quite different from what you expected. There can be a downturn in the revolutionary situation in the country. There can be an ebb. All these things are quite possible, creating new conditions. And as a result of our class struggle itself, relations can change, bringing up new challenges. And it's not necessary that you immediately realize it, because it takes some time for you to understand what changes are taking place. Sometimes ideology itself or your understanding of the situation itself can turn into a barrier, because when conditions change, to immediately recognize that it's not an easy thing. So you might be a bit lagging behind the conditions. But despite all that, the way to go ahead is to stick to the path of revolution. And that path of revolution is not just decided by somebody I think that was there in Sonu's article that the principal contradiction has changed and therefore the path of revolution has changed. Now, whether the principal contradiction has changed or not is a matter of debate, of study and all that. But whatever that might be, does that decide the path of revolution? Is that what happened in China? We know that the principal contradiction changed there when the Japanese invasion took place. But did the Chinese Communist Party abandon the path of protracted people's war because of that? Obviously not, because that is decided by various other conditions. Whether there is a revolutionary situation, whether there is opportunity for you to wage armed struggle, whether the terrain, the spread of the population, etc., the main force of the revolution. All these are factors which go into deciding that. And it is on the basis of all these factors that from the time of Naxalbari onwards, the Maoists have considered that the path of protracted people's war is the path that we have to follow to make revolution a success in this country. And we know that that has been commonly accepted in all the semi-colonial, semi-feudal countries also. So as Lenin had said that at the time, if at all, at some time or the other, in a few generations, perhaps ahead, the revolution has to succeed, must succeed, then this is the path we have to follow. And we have to find out definitely what are the errors that were made, what are the things that we did not realize in time, etc. All these things are there, no doubt. We have to correct them, we have to develop that path to suit conditions. But that is only possible when you stick to that path. And now what these capitulators are arguing for, these traitors are arguing for, is to abandon the path of revolution altogether. Because when you say that armed struggle is no longer possible in this country, then what exactly are you talking about? You're attacking the very basis of Marxist understanding. We all know that there is a state, the state rules with force, and the essential question of any revolution is the question of state power. So let's say that the country has become capitalist, as they argue, that everywhere there is capitalism and there is no longer any semi-feudalism. Let's accept that for the argument's sake. So then what does that mean? Does that mean that you don't have to do armed struggle to seize power? That the ruling class is one day going to decide, all right, you guys come and rule, we are going to go? Obviously not. Even in that conditions, you would have to wage armed struggle, an insurrection, if that is what is needed, to seize power. And for that, you have to prepare for that. It's not that on one fine day you wake up and say, all right, let's have an insurrection. That's not how it happens. You have to prepare for that. You have to build up a secret party for that. So, when they say that armed struggle is not possible in this country, that we have to go for elections, what they mean is that we don't want to make revolution. We want to live a comfortable life as brand ambassadors, etc., of the mining companies or whatever. And the degeneration, inevitable degeneration that happens when somebody abandons the revolutionary line of Marxism, the revolutionary soul of Marxism, is very much evident in that interview which was given by Sonu recently, which came in the Indian Express. When asked about the question of mining, that the CPI-Maoist has always opposed mining, and now the government is linking its rehabilitation policy by putting people giving them employment in the mining sector, his interesting reply was very, very revealing. He said that yes, the party had opposed that, but the state needs mining. Note those words, the state needs mining, very well. Which state? Whose state? For what purpose? No, none of this comes in his concern. The state needs mining, and then he goes to America, where the Native Americans were driven out by the whites and all their lands were taken over. So this is happening in India also. This is a historical process. So being historical materialists, I suppose, we should keep silent and accept that. After all, we are materialist. Historical materialism teaches us that society advances through the contradiction of production forces and production relations and all that. So As Sonu teaches us now, this is a historical process and therefore we should keep silent while these corporates, Indian as well as foreign, ravage our land, plunder our land for their profits. The excuse is that the state needs money. So one can see the degeneration that they have reached now, where they are putting forward excuses. And that reminds us of the question that Soni Sori had raised when she was asked about the surrenders. He said that, well, they have surrendered and gone, they have made a deal. But was the issue of the Adivasis included in that deal? Did they settle that now in the future after this deal is made, the Adivasi lands will not be seized, that this plunder of land will stop? Was anything of that sort done? We all know the answer, and if at all there was any doubt, now Sonu has cleared that up. So this betrayal, we face another one now, and that again teaches us that the only way to surmount all of this is by standing firm on our ideology, on our clarity on the line, on the conditions that we face, on applying Marxism-Leninism, Maoism to understand the situation that we face and the way out of it. And I'm sure that this seminar, where we are going to talk about the mode of production, about the path of revolution, of the question of armed struggle, in more detail, will definitely be of great service at this particular juncture in shedding light, in showing us a way forward, in clearing up the confusion that is being created by these capitulators and betrayers. So with those words, I will conclude my inaugural speech. I suppose I am to declare that the conference is inaugurated, I suppose, at least. So that's done. Al salam to all of you.